Well, good morning from South Central Nebraska. This is your April 16th edition of the 2026 Channel CropCast, all in, all season. Uh, for those of you who are returning visitors or listeners to this, appreciate it and welcome back. If this is your first time, this is a weekly agronomic update video from the channel brand here in South Central Nebraska. So, with that being said, let's get right into our agronomic update here this morning. And looking at the bare soil temperature at 4-inch depth for the state of Nebraska, pretty much everybody at 50 or above. We even got a data point in there that's 62. So lots of field work being done. Planters are rolling as we speak. I know one of my first plots goes in here this afternoon, and so a lot of people excited to get things done. With that being said, as we all know, we've got a little bit of a cold snap coming this weekend. So, unfortunately, it looks like we're going back from air conditioning back to the furnace being fired up for Friday and Saturday night, dipping down to 32. This is actually a little bit elevated compared to what I've seen. They were talking in the 20s. So, lots of conversations this week around what does this mean for the corn that I have planted? What does it mean for the fields that I'm either pre-watering to plant into, or the fields that I've already planted that, hey, we still haven't had a lot of help from Mother Nature, so I need to water it to get it up. So what does that mean? Found a nice article from UNL to really sum up, some irrigation considerations when we're talking about irrigating prior to crop planting, and then even early in the year, maybe after we've planted. So, a couple reminders that I always like to think about, if we're going prior to crop planting, it's always good to really think about, what does our planter need to work really well for us and get us the best stand. And if that's something that we need to pre-water, and many for sure are pre-watering to make sure we get the soil conditions we need to have a chance at a very good stand once our planter passes through. Uh, those are things we need to consider. Another piece is what crop protection have we used? Is this something that needs water to activate, or if we've applied anhydrous ammonia in strips and we've had less than 2 inches of precip since we did that application, maybe that's something we need to think about to minimize the potential for burn for corn that's emerging through those zones. So again, if we can keep that water, especially in those areas that are allocated, of course, I'm one that if I don't have to water, obviously we don't need we really don't want to, and especially if we can use that water later in the growing season at a time like pollination or grain fill, we'd like to do that. But sometimes we've got to get the crop up and as even as possible as well to ensure good yields as well. So running early in the year, especially with the temperatures that we're going to be looking at, again, we don't really love to run pivots under 40 degrees. Sometimes it is necessary and you can get away with it. But the other piece we need to watch are the dew points. So again, if you choose to run in those conditions, just make sure we're watching for ice buildup. Uh, the second part of that is really the soil conditions. If we've got powdery soils due to lack of rain, a lot of times if we're having a rain event or we're doing an irrigation event, those tend to seal up really, really quickly. So we want to make sure we're not, concerned about something like runoff, even with just a minimal amount of water, even if we're just putting on an inch or a half inch after we get through planting. The last thing really is to make sure we're getting enough water to hit that moisture level underneath. So let's think about if we've got a moisture level, but say the top 2 to 4 inches are really, really dry. If we're only impacting about the top inch to inch and a half, we've got to make sure we've got to get enough water there so that our roots can continue to grow through that zone and get into the soil moisture that's deeper. So we want to make sure that profile is nice and happy with water all the way through. Roots don't do well when we go into dry soil, as we all know. So, that really impacts this next piece. And another piece that I'm getting a lot of calls on is really downforce. you know, we've had, unfortunately, the past couple of years had to use some, um, what I would call excessive downforce to get into soil conditions, even that have been pre-watered. Uh, Anything that we've seen is anywhere over 125 pounds. If we're having to use that, we're probably going to start to see some things like soil compaction or intra-row compaction just in the seed furrow itself. So that can mean a couple things. Obviously, delayed or uneven emergence, but we can also get what we're seeing in this rooting picture right here on the bottom. Just a root structure that, when a wind event does come or we're trying to uptake water and nutrition, that root system is just going to be far inferior to plants around it. So we've already immediately impacted yield overall. So appreciate the time again this week. Thank you for tuning in, and be safe. Make it home to our families. That's our number one. Make sure to check twice when you're turning. Uh, check twice. If we're putting in plots, make sure we know where everybody is and have a plan of who's going to be doing what jobs. But again, our number one job is to make it home at night. So be safe. Make every acre count. And if you need something, please reach out to your local seed professional or channel representative.